It's time we talked about a mainstream movie. And by mainstream movie, I mean a movie called Mainstream. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore. And if you have seen the trailer for the movie Mainstream, I'm sure you're as excited as I am to talk to GIA COPPOLA, who's the director of Mainstream. This is a movie starring Andrew Garfield that is extremely timely. It's about the world of YouTube and our obsession with our mobile devices, these black mirrors that we stare into that have such a profound effect on all of our lives now, whether we like it or not. GIA, thank you for being on the Film Threat Podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Obviously, the film is influenced by, our current world where people seek, I believe, seeking likes and online digital approval, in which ends up feeling somewhat hollow. Your film explores this, and in such a way that, like, if you've seen the trailer to this, which you have to see the trailer in the movie, by the time you see this interview, the movie will be out and available for you to see. It's not crazy. The events in this film seem so over the top, but really not. Tell me, where did this whole project come from, and what you're trying to say in the film, I think, is extremely important for our times.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I just sort of, I grew up above Hollywood Boulevard, and that sort of strip is dedicated to celebrity, and I was just sort of fascinated why we have so much value in that, and the sort of toxicity of self, constant gratification, and where it's sort of in this period of where it's part of our everyday lives, and how does that affect us emotionally. And I just really wanted to tell a story that was reflecting back what I was seeing and feeling, and not trying to totally lecture people, because I think we're all still trying to figure it out and still make it fun.
I appreciate that approach, because I feel like we're lectured so often these days about ways we have to be. And what your film does is presents, here's the situation, you decide how to think about it. What's amazing is the cameos that you have in it. Real YouTube stars like Logan Paul. Johnny Knoxville has a great part in it as well. How did, in getting real YouTube stars to actually be in the film, how did they feel about what you were trying to say, which is somewhat of an indictment of some of the people on YouTube?
Well, doing the casting, I got to meet all of them, and they're really actually lovely people, and super intelligent, and have a deep connection with their audience. But it's more about how we as human beings, battle our ego, and how do you kind of stay sane in an environment that's constantly trying to push you over the edge. But yeah, I mean, getting to know these YouTubers was really such a luxury, and they guided me to kind of what feels, truthful to them.
Just like, as someone who I watch YouTube like a lot of people, and so many of the things that happen in the film just ring so true. Your cast, which is fantastic, Andrew Garfield, just been amazing, and a film that you probably have seen, but I don't think it really got the release it deserved, which is Under a Silver Lake. I thought was really amazing. He's unhinged in this. He really, I don't think he does anything halfway. Ever. He really goes for it. What was it like to work with him? And in particular, there's a scene on Hollywood Boulevard. I don't know how you shot it. It's briefly seen in the trailer, but he's basically, I don't want to ruin anything, he's kind of walking around fully naked in a way that will be surprising to people. He really goes for it. What was it like to work with him? And then in some scenes like that, how did you pull that off?
Yeah, I mean, I've just been such a fan of Andrew Garfield, and he's one of our great talents. So to kind of be in that presence was really just a an honor, and to collaborate with someone like that, I learned so much. But yeah, I think for me, it was also allowing him the space to do what was exciting to him as an actor, and really run free. And, you know, with that scene, I had written it in a certain way, and I was trying to figure out how to execute it so that it was safe for someone of his caliber to not, you know, embarrass himself too much. But when I was walking down Hollywood Boulevard, I was like, what if we did it here? And he was like, yeah. And he was always just game and gung-ho. And he even expanded on that. That was supposed to be just like him in nude underwear and blur it out. And, you know, as you saw in the film, he added a little more to it.
Oh, well, I think that was a great choice on both of your parts. I actually think it made it it made it more interesting. I don't want to ruin it too much. How, in terms of putting together the show, there definitely was I mean, the show parts of the film, once it gets to like around the second half of the film, it turns into this big show. How did you orchestrating those numbers? And there's sort of there's an over the topness to it. I mean, some of these YouTube shows definitely put a lot of resources. This one was like extremely over the top. Can you talk about how you put that together? And there's even like dance numbers and choreography. It's really involved.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I've always wanted to play around with choreography, and Andrew is an amazing dancer. He used to be a gymnast as a child, so just kind of really exploiting that talent of his. But, you know, the tone of this film is satire and part fairy tale, so I felt like I had liberty to kind of be a little bit more heightened and extreme, and live in what I thought would be cool.
And additionally, Maya Hawke, she's fantastic in it. She really grounds it in reality. I mean, I'm with her on this journey, and she's just just the grounding force, right? She's reacting to all this sort of this chaos around her. Tell me about working with her.
I met Maya on a photo shoot, and I just felt really connected with her. She has this sort of weirdness that I bonded with, and we just had this sort of telepathic communication that didn't require any words, and we really just got each other. And when I was with her, I just felt like the character came alive, and I saw her. And of course, she has this amazing skill where just so much of her emotion is just seen through her subtlety and through her eyes, and you really kind of experience what she's feeling and are on her journey while she's in the midst of this crazy character.
The other thing that you do in the film, which I think is extremely effective, in a scene with Maya, she's vomiting out of just like pure, I mean, she's vomiting, but it's not just, you don't show vomit. It's actually, you know, hearts and emojis and whatnot. This is something you used sparingly in the film, which I thought was amazing. But it's a comment on all of this. Like, we are, and I think, you know, when you look at like mental illness, when you look at teen suicide, this is really a problem. It all spikes with when the iPhone became affordable. That's when teen depression and suicide went on the rise. And I think that this sort of false validation through likes from strangers on the internet has really, you see the price that's being paid. You're subtly commenting on this with the graphics. Tell me what led to that decision, and then what are your thoughts on sort of the mental well-being of our culture right now, where social media, something can happen on social media. It doesn't happen to you in real life. It happens to you on social media, and yet it affects everything. It can ruin a good day.
I always knew that I wanted to be creative with the kind of language that is so much a part of this world, and very uncinematic, and try to find a way to make it cinematic, and kind of blur the lines of what's reality. but it was her vomiting emojis was really just how I was feeling about the overabundance of content, and sort of making this film was my kind of catharsis of how do I release all of these questions and feelings, and turn it into something. But it's true that the worst sort of case scenario in this environment is suicide, and it's partly because everything that you would go through without a phone is now amplified, and you're having strangers and a million people comment on an embarrassing moment, as opposed to just being a kid walking down the hallway and having sort of standard awkward teen.
Well, I'm really curious how people are going to react to this movie, because I watched it twice, and it was the second viewing really the messages and the themes just really hit home for me. So I really am curious how the internet, and you mentioned the word content, which is I know we use that word. I'm not a fan of that word. You made a movie. You did not make a piece of content. We refer to that, so often. That's just because there's such a wealth of it these days, right? But what you made is just really something special. I know you got to run. We're short on time, but I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't ask about, you come from a legacy of filmmaking family. Your last name, Coppola. Can I just ask what you may have learned from your family? I mean, like incredible talent from your family, and I thank you, living up to their legacy.
Oh, thank you very much. I mean, I'm very grateful I have such amazing people to turn to for advice. But so much of our family is just about following what inspires you and feels true to you, and what's your own journey, and figuring out your own identity.
Well, the film is fantastic. I really can't wait for people to see it, and not only see it, to discuss it. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us on the Film Threat Podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.